Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's two-part episode, in Team Season Preview 22 out of 32, I was joined by San Francisco 49ers fans Ollie Hope and Paul Hope as we preview the team's upcoming season. Ollie discusses the return of Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator.
Everyone seems to think Robert Saleh is this saviour, but I think we need to remember how stacked our defence was in 2019.
Paul discusses the options available to Brock Purdy this season.
George Kittle will probably be option one, and that's got everything to do with Farrell coming in to block tight end, releasing Kittle. I think CMC is going to be your all-purpose weapon.
As both Ollie and Paul predict the team's overall season record in our win-loss tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and here today for another team's season preview, and this time it's the San Francisco 49ers in a two-part special. Now, part one, I've got a returning guest, a die-hard Niners fan. Back with me today is third and longs, Ollie Hope. Ollie, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, thank you, Andy. It's nice to see that you've got a hope in part one and a hope in part two.
Yeah, that is true. We got Ollie Hope. No, you got Paul Hope coming up in part two. So keep an eye out for that.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. It's always a pleasure to come on your show.
Well, no problem at all. Without even realising, I didn't realise this. I've got a red T-shirt on and I've got a red water bottle. So I'm fully in the Niners red spirit in this episode.
Yeah, well, I'm repping my Kyle Juszczyk shirt. Happy that nonsense in the off-season ended quickly. But yeah, ready for the season to start now, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a season which disappointed, I would say, the Niners fans. But no, certainly an interesting off-season. And speaking of which, let's head on to the ins and outs of the off-season for the 49ers. The main ins include the likes of Mac Jones, Saran Neal, DeMarcus Robinson, Kyle Juszczyk after a couple of days out of the team, Thomas Morstead, Eli Apple, literally at time of recording yesterday, Equinemius St. Brown, Quintus Cephas, and then the main outs, well, where do we start? Jordan Mason, as well as Talanoa Hufanga, Elijah Mitchell, Eric Sauber, Rock Yassin, Isaac Yiadom, Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, Drain Greenlaw, Javondre Campbell, and Charvarius Ward. And then looking into the draft, the first three players taken were in the draft, Mikael Williams out of Georgia, 11th overall. Defensive tackle Alfred Collins out of Texas, 43rd overall. And linebacker out of Oklahoma State, taken 75th overall. As well as Upton Stout, CJ West, Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, Marquez Sigley, Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby, and Junior Bergen. Ollie, overall for you, your take on a very hectic Niners offseason.
Well, we've lost a lot of defense. Charvarius Ward, I think, had to get out of San Francisco just because of what happened to him in the last season. He mentioned he was having PTSD, and I think he just needed to get out of California. But with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, I would have liked to have played one of them, preferably Dre Greenlaw, because I think his partnership with Fred Warner is pretty electric sometimes. And losing both of them was big. And we have kind of replaced him in the draft, but I'm not sure if it's going to be adequate. Everyone seems to think Robert Saleh is this saviour, but I think we need to remember how stacked our defense was in 2019. In terms of offense, I'm glad Kyle Juszczyk's back after we released him 2 days. That all seems a bit weird, and I still think we have a bit of a weak offensive line, which seems a bit weird after investing all that money in Purdy. We're now not investing any money in protecting him. But I think our schedule's soft this year, so I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of changes in the off-season. We mentioned the ins and outs there. Of course, Deebo Samuel was, a big part of your team, particularly that 2023 season where you made it all the way to Vegas in the Super Bowl and fell short to the Niners. I mean, you still got the likes of George Kittle there, McCaffrey, Ayuk.
I'm really not that bothered about Debo.
Are you not? Because I've heard some people have been saying this recently that maybe they thought he was overpaid than what he was back that off season.
Debo was on 2020 and 2021 Debo money, but not on 2020 and 2021 Debo production. So he was in 2020 and 2021. Debo was incredible. I will admit that. He was running the ball, he was catching the ball, but the last 2 seasons he'd been on the decline. And at that point, I think he probably was overpaid. So shipping him off to Washington and freeing up some cap space, I don't think was necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats now, I mean, it's a significant drop off from what it was. I mean, looking at sort of the 2021 season was by far his best in multiple aspects. I mean, his most receptions, 77. His most yards, 1,405. In total, his second largest touchdown total of 6. And also he got 8 rushing touchdowns as well. And then fast forward 2 years later, the year he made the Super Bowl, slightly less yards, 892, but he had 7 touchdowns in receiving and 5 rushing. But then you look at 2024, and it's not even down to injury. He played 15 games, had 670 yards and just 3 touchdowns receiving, and also just 1 rushing touchdown, and had 2 fumbles as well, which he had a lot of fumbles, in his career, 12 actually, and he had 4, his most fumbles in the year in that 2021 season. But yeah, it wasn't quite the season that maybe, or the couple of seasons that maybe fans were hoping for. And there's been stuff going on recently. His pictures in practice where he's looked slightly overweight, which I don't like to put on players too much. You think about Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes getting the dad bods, but I think at wide receiver, it's a bit more of a concern. And of course, there's been the story recently with that Buccaneers player that has been, I think, 405 pounds and massive
Something
overweight.
like that.
Yeah, it's not been a season that maybe he hoped for, and obviously he ended up being shipped away. But I think overall, the whole team, it was pretty poor. And I think the main disappointment came not through his own fault, but through Christian McCaffrey. And he came to the Niners for fairly cheap because of injuries. He was at the Panthers, and I always mention a story about how him and Barkley are the same running back in terms of loads of injury problems at a team where they're not very good, and they're the main offense. You go to a team, or both of them go to teams where they're just one of many great players. They're not required to be on every snap and every down making plays. I think that's helped McCaffrey have what was maybe his second, if not best, year of his career in 2023. But the injuries came back. He only played 4 games in 2024. And you can blame some on the Madden curse. I know I like to blame on the Madden curse, but in terms of him, I mean, it's kind of, it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde. You're either going to get a McCaffrey who's scoring, 15 touchdowns a season, 1,500 yards, or you're getting a McCaffrey who spends half the year, if not more, on the sidelines. What are you expecting out of McCaffrey? Are you thinking he can get back to what he was, or do you think that maybe at the age he's at, maybe it's one injury too far?
Well, the McCaffrey was a bit of a weird one because he'd been injured in camp, and all you could hear is he's going to be good for week 1. He's going to be good for week 1. He's going to be good for week 1. And then we were Monday night week 1 last year, and then I'd taken the Tuesday off work, so I was watching the game. The inactives came out, and I was like, Christian McCaffrey. But everything said he was trending to play. And then obviously he had the Achilles tendonitis, and that put him out for most of the season. I don't think he's going to hit the heights that he hit in 2023 because I think that's very hard to replicate. I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to get close to his year last year. But I think maybe 1,400 yards. We've got some decent backup running backs this year. Isaac Grendo, can't remember, James, the little guy. We've got some decent backups, so I think he might not play as many snaps as he did in 2023, but I think he could have a pretty productive season. I've got my fingers crossed that he does because I've got him in a lot of dynasty fantasy leagues.
Yeah, I've seen a few recent trends. Now, my fantasy love has dwindled, but I've definitely stayed in a few leagues. We are doing a charity league, in which Ollie, you are a part of.
I'm still got like I lost in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, you did. I forget. I think you lost to was it Bears Fan of the Year? Bears Fan of
Yeah,
the Year.
yeah, I think it was
Garrett.
James Gowers who's been on both of our shows.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I forgot he was on yours. But no, I think McCaffrey. I think I think if you get even 1,000 yards out of him, maybe 6 touchdowns, I think that would be fine. It would be good for a year back after injury. I'm only playing 4 games. I think getting back for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns would represent, I think, a good season. Now, it's probably not one that would get him in, like he was a couple years ago, in MVP conversations, but certainly to give you guys competitive, win you games. I don't think you need him to have the numbers he had 2 years ago.
I don't like to believe camp talk, but camp talk is that he's the sharpest he's ever been. He's in the form of his life. I know his wife's just had their first kid. Congratulations to them, and congratulations to Brock Purdy and his wife because they've just also had a baby. But now maybe he's got a little bit extra motivation.
Maybe we could see one final swan song from McCaffrey. Now sticking with the offense, now we could talk about the defense. You've still got some good players there. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, I think McCall Williams. It could be a great addition to your team. I always root for likes of Yetur Gross-Matos, but he's not projected to start. I think the main thing I want to talk about now really is sticking with the offense and Ricky Pearsall. Now, Ricky Pearsall had an unfortunate offseason last year, obviously almost a tragic one, but thankfully he survived it. Was shot in the chest and miraculously survived that shooting in the chest. What I believe was it an autograph signing in a shopping mall?
It was just after an autograph signing in an alleyway near a shopping mall.
Right. Okay. But he came back, managed to play some point last year. But looking at the depth chart right now and we talk about McCaffrey's injury problems, obviously Debo's already gone. Brandon Ayuk is down as well as Jaron Jennings as injury doubts. And Ricky Pearsall already has a chance to get more reps because of Debo Samuel's departure from the team to the Commanders. But you think about if it is week 1 or week 2 and you haven't got even McCaffrey, but also Ayuk and Jennings, this is a chance for Pearsall to stake his claim. Obviously, Kittle will probably be the number 1 target to throw to due to his stock and his sort of experience. But Ricky Pearsall is going to a second year now. He's had an off season without, hopefully, touch wood, any other issues like what he had last year. Are you expecting a sort of sophomore rise from Pearsall, considering the fact that he could, at times this year, be the WR1 in the depth chart?
I've already said that I think by the end of the season, Ricky Pearsall will be our WR1.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Ayuk is not a WR1. Jennings, I think Jennings is projected to be back training next week, so I don't think he should be okay. But I also don't think he's a WR1. The only thing that I think which could hinder Ricky is I think he's going to be in the slot a lot, and you don't see that many slot receivers who are WR1. The only one I can think of, like off the top of my head, is Julian Edelman in New England. So I do think Ricky Pearsall is going to be a big part of the offense this year, and I think he's going to be one of Purdy's favorite targets.
Yeah, I think you saw it with Edelman. Talking still with Edelman, I mean, this is the guy who was a slot receiver for some of his time in the NFL, and that can sometimes be a quarterback's best friend. You think about crucial third downs where they're like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. You need that quick 5-yard gain, get into first down territory, and start again, and then go to your deeper threat receivers. I think that was where Edelman sort of shined, and obviously that we all know what happened in Super Bowl 51, the catch he made, Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 53. So Ricky Pearsall could easily be that guy, not just for this season, but maybe for the future for the Niners, to be sort of almost, Brock Purdy's comfort blanket and sort of safety net when it comes to those crucial third down plays. And Juwan Jennings, I mean, he could have easily won if the Niners won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He could have easily won MVP because he threw the first touchdown pass of the game and had an amazing game, but I don't think he's quite related to the rest of his career. I mean, He had 90 yards against the Bears last season, 91, 93. Only one game.
Look at the game against the Rams.
That's what I was going to say. 175 yards. We had that one game
and 3 touchdowns.
So yeah, no, he had that. That was the one game where he really excelled. But it reminds me a bit like Gabe Davis with the Bills. I mean, he had that amazing game against the Chiefs in that 13-second game. I think there's something like 4 touchdowns he had in the game, and he made crucial plays in that game, but never really did it consistently. I feel like Juwan Jennings might be the Buffalo Bills is no. He might be the 49ers, Gabe Davis.
I think something else with Gabe Davis is he was inconsistent, but he also kind of flew under the radar, and I think Jennings does the same. So I do think Jennings is a good wide receiver, and I do really like him. And I know there's a whole pay me or trade me thing at the moment, and I think we will end up paying him. But Jennings has made some crucial plays, but I do agree he needs to up his consistency a bit.
Absolutely. Well, let's head on to our next segment, which will be our win-loss tie section.
This is going to be hard because we've got a really easy schedule, but I know we'll slip up on some of them.
It's always the way, isn't it? And I think as well, it's always hard to try and predict games where you don't know how these teams are going to be. Now, you basically, everyone will be, in all our 32 episodes, everyone will be basically predicting teams based on a little bit, mostly what they did last season. And I think it's always hard to tell. But last season, of course, you came on with Phil, who isn't sadly with us today. He was meant to be on the show, but sadly, things in life got in the way. So the Niners went 6-11 in 2024. You came on, of course, I said then 12 months ago. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was 12 months ago for your Niners?
Was it 13-4?
Yeah, 13-4. So that is a 7-win gap.
Yeah, I think it might be something similar this season.
Well, let's find out. Or week 1, and you take on the road the first of 2 straight road games against the Seattle Seahawks.
I probably beat the Chickens. So I don't rate Sam Darnold. I don't think he's that good. I think the Minnesota offense made him look a lot better than he was. And also, without DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, I think the Seattle offense seems quite toothless. So I'm going to say Niners take the dub.
I agree totally with your Sam Darnold point of view. I think not just the Vikings offense, but Kevin O'Connell has made every quarterback he's worked with look good. Even Josh Dobbs had a little small period of greatness under O'Connell.
The Pastronaut.
The Pastronaut. Yeah, I don't rate. I do rate. I think Darnold had a really good year last year, but it's his one good year he had in the NFL, and I do worry about the contract they paid to $100 million over 3 years. It's a risky one to play, and I hope he works out because I do like Darnold as a guy, and I think that he has had a tough ride in the NFL, but equally those are the breaks, and I just don't think that he is going to live up to maybe the money he's been offered in Seattle.
I do like Darnold, but I find it hard to like anyone wearing a Seattle jersey, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that. We got Paul coming on part 2, and his biggest rival always has been the Seahawks. So it's a good place to start the year. In Seattle, Lumen Field, we're home of the 12s. It'll be a fierce atmosphere, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would be something, but I do think that the Niners will be too strong for them.
Well, week 2, sticking on the road, but this time to the New Orleans Saints. Win, lose, or tie.
Oh, I don't want to offend anyone here, but the Saints franchise is a mess.
Yeah, they're going to be one of the worst teams this year. I can guarantee it. Week 3 is your first home game of the season. It's once again an NFC West team as you host the Arizona Cardinals.
The Cardinals, for me, are still 2 seasons away from being good enough to challenge for the NFC West. So I'm going to say we're going 3-0.
And then week 4, you take on at home the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Again, the Jags they're still a few years away from being a very good team. Trevor Lawrence can sometimes get them out of trouble, but I think by then Mikael Williams will have been embedded into the Niners offense, and him and Bosa will be racing to the quarterback. And I don't see us having a problem at home against the Jags.
Okay, well, week 5, you're playing on the road to the Rams, who do play the Jags in London the same month as this game. For this one, win, lose, or tie.
Away the Rams, or I know the Niners fans like to call it Levi South, but I think the Rams is always a tough game, always a close game. So I'm going to say Niners go down and take the L.
Okay, sticking on the road in week 6, you head to Florida and take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So Tampa's an interesting one. I think Tampa are a very good team. However, Purdy, we played the Bucks twice, and Purdy has played very, very well both times, including his first start. His first start was actually at Raymond James Stadium. So I'll take the W with Purdy to have a great game.
Okay, sticking with the NFC South in week 7, you host the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons. Again, I think they're not the strongest team. They need to learn to use Kyle Pitts, but I think people have been saying that since he came into the league. I'm not sure how well Michael Penix Jr. is going to do for them. We don't really know. He's a bit of an unknown quantity at the moment. But I'm going to say in front of the faithful, I'm going to take the W.
Okay, so then week 8, you got back-to-back road games, and your first one is against the Houston Texans.
I think D'Amico is going to coach a defensive masterclass, and the Niners go down and lose.
Well, week 9, you're facing the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, the Giants. Russell Wilson is old. Jameis Winston throws with too many picks, and Jackson Dart isn't ready. So I think their quarterback situation is a bit not great. Their offensive weapons after Malik Neighbors are pretty bare. So I just say Niners probably take the dub in that one.
Okay, well, you're back at home in week 10, and this time you host the Los Angeles Rams.
There's no chance Shanahan's getting beaten twice by Sean McVay. I think Niners take the W at home.
Okay, so then week 11, you are facing the Arizona Cardinals on the road.
Cardinals shock everyone by knocking off the Niners at State Farm Stadium.
Okay, I like that. Week 12, you are home against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, the Panthers aren't great. I can't see us losing to the Panthers.
Okay, so then week 13, you're on the road to everyone's favorite team, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, who's going to be their quarterback by then?
I was saying this on the show. It might actually be with Shane. I was saying this, that I think you could see one of the rookies by this point, because I think they're going to start Joe Flacco, I'm sure, week 1. Then if he struggles he could struggle in the first 3 games, they could move on to Pickett. He could struggle by week 7 or 8. Week 13, there's nothing. I wouldn't be shocked if I'm seeing Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders on that field in week 13, because Flacco, I think he's the best option they have by a mile, but he's not guaranteed to do well because of his age and how he was maybe when he was at other teams in the past towards the end of his time. And I think Kenny Pickett has proved not to be a good player, by far the worst quarterback to play in a Super Bowl and win it in the last 10, 15 years. And then Dylan Gabriel, Sanders will battle it out. But I've seen reports say that they're going to cut one of them. So I think that could rule out one of them for this game. But yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think you could see Shedeur Sanders. I really do think he could surprise everyone and actually get at least 1 or 2 starts this season. I
actually prefer Gabriel over Sanders, but
yeah,
I think the Niners get the W here, no matter who's the quarterback for them.
yeah, it's not. It could be Sanders, could be Gabriel, could be Flacco, could be Pickett, could be Could be the Sean
Could
Watson.
be Kirk Cousins by then.
I mean, yeah, he will be the best option because I've only watched the first 4 episodes or 3 episodes of Quarterback on Netflix, but that point in the year where he's actually doing quite well. It's just gone over the Falcons win against the Buccaneers, and so I think there was a point in the year where he was looking good. I think he'll be the best option now. I don't know what's happening in Atlanta, whether I don't particularly rate Penix, if I'm honest. So he could easily get back into the frame next year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Kirk Cousins starts for Atlanta this season, but it also wouldn't surprise me if whichever quarterback goes down in camp, because one of them inevitably will, he ends up there.
Yeah, it's. I think certainly if he got released by the Falcons, he'd be hot property for teams who have a quarterback injury, or even something like Jameis Winston could come back. I mean, Jameis Winston. If Russell Wilson starts the first 6 games and does well, Winston has some trade value. You could see him going back to Cleveland. Of course, worked there last year under Stefanski. You could see him maybe playing in the Browns still as well. Week 14 is your bye week, so week 15 is a home game against the Tennessee Titans.
I don't think Cam Ward's going to be the Lord and Savior of Tennessee. I mean, I love the Vols with all my heart, but I'm not a Titans fan. I'm a Niners fan, and they take the W.
So I think Cam Ward is good. I think he'd be good. I mean, I've been really impressed by his professionalism and his attitude. I mean, talk about Sanders a minute ago, and it's almost the complete opposite of that with Cam Ward.
I think Cam Ward will be good. I just don't think he's going to be able to save the Titans franchise this season.
I agree. But then we were saying the same thing about Daniels last season and Stroud the year before. So you never know.
Yes.
But I don't know who he's throwing to. You got Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard to hand the ball off to. It's not.
Did Tyler Lockett end up there?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, 1 year, $4 million deal. So I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to save you. But at least Stroud had Nico Collins, and Daniels had McLaurin. So I think he will guide into better things, and I think certainly they'll get way more wins, maybe a 7-win season this year. But I think sophomore year, 3rd year, 4th year, I can see him, doing great things at the Titans. Talking of quarterback situations, in Week 16, your final road game of the regular season, you travel to Indianapolis and take on one of the worst quarterback rooms in the NFL in the Colts.
Yeah. I don't think I need to say much more about that, but Anthony Richardson will probably be asleep by the second quarter because he'll be a bit tired. Not quite sure who their backup even is.
Daniel Jones.
Oh, Danny Dimes, great. He'll be the Lord and Savior of Indianapolis. Yeah, W.
Yeah, I think Jones will play all season. I think Richardson, when he tapped out of that game, I think that was for me, because I had him stupidly as my MVP pick. I thought he would ball out. I thought he minded me of Josh Allen and Cam Newton combined. I thought he was going to have a great year. Prove me wrong, and I'm never going to have faith in him. Even as an ex-Florida Gator, I'm never going to have faith in him. After he tapped out, that was it for me. I was done, with the hype and thinking he'd be good. Because, that for me, you just can't do that as an NFL player. Week 17 is a game in Soldier Field, and the Chicago Bears will take on the Niners.
I think the Bears are going to be very good this year. I love Ben Johnson. I think Caleb Williams will improve, as will Rome Odunze. I don't see a way. I think people might bill this as a NFC championship game preview.
Wow, that is what, the Bears against the Niners?
Yes.
Wow, that is a hot take. I'm not going to lie. I don't see either of them making the. I see the Niners making the playoffs potentially, but I don't see the Bears making the playoffs. I could be wrong.
Or at least a divisional round game, but I think the Niners lose.
Wow, that's a hot take. I love it though. I love it. Wow. Now, week 18, the section I'm calling the hardest week to predict. You take on the Seattle Seahawks at home.
I think this is going to be a game that doesn't matter. I think by that point, Niners will have made the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win the division or anything, but I think they're going to have made the playoffs by this point. So it wouldn't surprise me if Mac Jones starts. But I like Mac Jones, and I think Seattle won't have anything to play for, or might even be tanking at this point. So I'm going to say Niners win.
Yeah, Mac Jones against his old team. Well, that would mean that you'd finish the season with a 13-4 record.
Well, like I said, we have the easiest schedule of anyone.
Yeah, it is a really favourable schedule. I'm not
Yes.
going to lie. So you get 13-4 in your imaginary hypothetical world. If it comes true and you go 13-4, how far will you go in the postseason?
We're going all the way.
Wow, the hype is there. The hype is real.
Bills beat Niners in the Super Bowl.
Wow. Oh, so you're saying a loss. You're not saying a win. Then you're saying a loss. But you're still
Yeah,
making...
loss in a third loss in the Super Bowl in the last since I don't know, last 6 years.
in your own stadium as well.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, I would be definitely cheering you on if you were playing the Bills. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can assume that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got great friends in Buffalo. I mean, I've made some really good friends from there. David Caproche, I want to shout him out. Part of Bills Mafia, season ticket holder, become a good friend of mine. And I'd almost rather see them win it in a way than the Jets or Patriots, because of purely for the two Bills fans, him and Charlie, I've got to know. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'd want them to win it, because, we have the unbeaten season, which we have over every other team in the league, but Bills haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And that's, if they win a Super Bowl in the next, which I think they'll make one in the next 5 years. I think they will make at least one in the next 5 years. If they win it, they'll have that bragging rights over us until we do the same thing. So, yeah, never wanted a division rival to win. I would. My ideal Super Bowl, my ideal AFC game will be Ravens Bengals because of Derrick Henry and Mike Gesicki. NFC is probably the Bears. Maybe Bears Cowboys would be my ideal NFC game.
Cowboys.
I do like the Cowboys. I love the jerseys. Yeah, I've got a little soft spot for the Cowboys. The Bears is my favorite NFC team, but the Cowboys I do have a little soft spot for. I think it's the jerseys. I love the white and the navy jerseys. I love them.
The Cowboys, the team I hate. Apart from the Seahawks and the Rams, they're the team I hate the most.
That I get because of the rivalry. I did get that with the catch and those 3 or 4 years where you were always playing.
I don't know. If you're editing this, can you just edit in Terrell Owens celebrating on the star for me?
And then we'll insert the catch as well. Yeah, Terrell Owens. Yeah, he played for both teams, and it's pretty big rivalry. I think. I can't think who I hate the most. I don't like any of them. I mean, I will say I don't really physically hate many teams in the NFL. I do love the league.
There's only 4 teams I physically hate.
Fair. Okay, I'm guessing Seahawks, Cowboys, Cardinals, and Rams.
No, Cardinals too insignificant. It's the Browns.
Oh, well, because of the injured quarterback at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, if he's starting, I don't want him going anywhere near my TV. But I think even if I was sort of originally, I'd love for someone like Joe Flacco to come in and say surprise everyone and won a Super Bowl, but he still get a ring.
But while he's still on their roster, I can't like the Browns.
And he still get a ring.
Yeah.
If he's injured, he might not actually get a ring. He might be. But I think if he's on the bench, then he still get a ring. So yeah, if he was injured, I wouldn't mind it because
he's out for the season. But
say if the Browns shock ever make the Super Bowl and he's on injured reserve, I don't think he'd get a ring. I think if you're on the injured reserve, you don't get a ring. So
while they're still putting money into his bank account, then I can't like him.
No, that's fair. I think that's fair.
For me, the Cardinals aren't a significant. I might end up eating my words here, but at the moment, the Cardinals aren't a significant enough threat for me to hate them. I don't really like them, but
yeah, I mean, that's almost like would you call Mike almost like the annoying brother? Would you say maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, there we are. That's the end of part one. Obviously, we'll head on to part two in a minute with Paul Hope. But Ollie, I want to say first of all, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a great laugh coming on with you, and hopefully we'll have you on our podcast when we start back up in mid-August, and hopefully we'll get to meet up at one of the games like we did last season.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm always up for coming on your show. Been a guest on before. So yeah, if ever you need me, just let me know. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you in London. Of course, saw you for a meal at TGI Fridays in London, in Leicester Square. Met up with a friend of the show, Baldy the Big Fella, who sadly haven't made a podcast in months. Hopefully they bring that back at some point this season. And yeah, it was nice. And yeah, it was good to meet you for the first time.
Yeah, it was good to meet you too.
And yeah, met your friend very briefly for like 30 seconds as well.
Yeah, I ended up getting the 1 a.m. train back to Bath that night.
Oh, of course, you've gone on some train day. You've gone on some training.
Yeah, I ended up in Reading that day.
Right, yeah, and you had a long day then to get from Reading. Yeah, that's a long day. I'm surprised you stayed awake for that meal.
Well, I mean, we were all just chatting about NFL. It was a great couple of hours.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, and it was it was nice. I always love TGI Fridays. I love the vibe. I love the food. Yeah,
you just come from the Jags training session, hadn't you?
Yes, I come from one session. I can't think whether it was.
I think you went to the Jags because it was the Jags' second week, so there weren't that many reporters there.
Yeah, I get my days mixed up because there was one time where I met a previous friends and I'd gone to. I can't think of who the team was now. My mind's gone blank. But yeah, no, it probably was the Jags.
I think it was the Jags.
I can't think who even played last year. My mind's gone blank.
It was they played they played the Jets and the Vikings, I believe.
Yes. The first week was I went to the Jets on the Friday, and then the Jags on the Saturday. But no, there was definitely one. That might have been Aaron Rodgers. That might be in the Aaron Rodgers day because I swear I remember talking about that with.
No, because it was because my friend was down because he's a Vikings fan, so it was the Vikings week.
I could have sworn, I think we went to the Jets practice that day. I think that was the day you went to watch.
Oh, okay.
Practice.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, my mind is so long ago now. I've forgotten everything, but in terms of who played who, but yeah, no. This has been the end of our part one of our Niners season preview. I have been, as ever, your host Andy Davis with our guest today, Ollie Hope. And let's head on to part two. And welcome back to part two of our 49ers season preview. Part one, you would have seen us with Ollie Hope from the Third and Long podcast. Part two is with another Hope, another 49ers fan. Back to me today, making his long overdue return, is Paul Hope. Paul, how have you been? It's been ages.
Yeah, similar to the 49ers season last year, Andy. Content creating had to take a bit of a back seat. So when I was preparing for today, I felt like it'd been a while since we've spoken. I know we communicate in DMs and we follow each other on social media. So it is good to be back. I did say to you last time, yours is one of those that I like to answer the bat signal for. So I know we booked this one in the calendar a while ago, and NFL football is back, baby. How good is that?
Yeah, literally in about, I want to say 3 hours time, if my maths is right. At time of recording, we are getting the Lions-Chargers Hall of Fame game. And yeah, it's exciting. I can't wait. And I know maybe it's not the season I'm hoping for my team. I don't think I'm, some people are sitting here. I'm so jealous of some people who get to sit here and say, I'm getting to, hopefully see my team win a Super Bowl. I'm hoping to see my team make the playoffs or make the Super Bowl. I don't know what I'm going to get with my team, but it's very exciting nevertheless, and I can't wait for what the season's about to give us.
I said last time, Ollie is a friend of the show that I do. There is no relation as far as I'm aware. I am probably old enough to be his dad, but I am excited to talk all things 49ers. Now, I am still upbeat. I am still positive, but I am realistic, Andy, about the roster turnover, the season we had last year. But I was listening to your episode with Sam, the Rams fan, and I've done shows with Sam before, but he got me fired up He's feeling very confident, which we all are at this stage of the season. As Aaron Rodgers said on Pat McAfee, there's 32 teams. Every single one of them thinks at this moment in time, on the 31st of July, they're coming the Super Bowl. But I have to acknowledge, Andy, last year was a disaster for my 49ers.
Yeah, almost a carbon copy of what happened the last time we made the Super Bowl in the 2019 season. And part one, I kind of said to Ollie that I, by chance, not even planning it, I was wearing a red t-shirt, I had a red water bottle. Now today, I've got a different water bottle, but without even realizing, this isn't planned, I promise, I'm wearing a Levi's t-shirt, which it wasn't planned in any way. And obviously, you've got your, for those older listeners, he is wearing a Brock Purdy NFL Blitz t-shirt, which I didn't know they existed. In terms of, I've only seen them really out in public once before, and that was when I went to Minnesota and I was in a Viking shop in the Mall of America. I saw some Justin Jefferson ones, but I've never really seen them elsewhere. But yeah, I didn't know they existed online at Fanatics, so I'm going to see what they have Fanatics wise for the Dolphins. Now, I'm hoping. I don't think I'm going to go down the Tyreek Hill route. I've already got Jalen Waddle jerseys, and maybe someone as rogue as Zach Sealer, if he's possible, on NFL Blitz. I don't know whether they go for just the main guys, or even if they have Dolphins NFL Blitz t-shirts in the first place. But yeah, I'm definitely going to give those a look out for.
Yeah, so I've got this one. I said to you off air, I haven't pressed the trigger on a Purdy jersey. The $265 million contract has been done. I'm holding my horses for the NFL rivalry jersey. So if you're following Niners fans on social media, they're doing a great job of teasing this new jersey, but it's not out until the end of August. So last year, I got the Homage NFL Blitz t-shirt. I think we only do this one and the CMC one. I've got both. The CMC one's red. But you know me, Andy. Me and you have a bit of banter about 49ers quarterback. So there was only one t-shirt I was rocking tonight, and that was the Purdy t-shirt, just for you, buddy.
And I got to ask you, how are you feeling, Paul?
I'm feeling pretty good. I know we'd get that in early. Training camp has started. So the Niners had a day off yesterday. So I don't do other sports. So I'm fully plugged in on how the Niners are doing. The rebuild has started. The confidence is flowing. And I know other fans listening are thinking, oh, here he goes. Paul Hope, 49ers. He's going to come on Andy's show and he's going to say they're winning it all. But there's been a lot of talk, Andy, about the free agency and the players that the Niners lost. The only one I was really devastated about was Dre Greenlaw. And I know we're going to get into that. But I've got the list of all the players that we lost. Look at the pieces we've added in the draft. Look at the pieces we've picked up in free agency. Kyle Shanahan's offense has been found out. I've got some stats that might prove otherwise.
Okay, well, let's get into it. I mean, we have already mentioned it in part one, but for Paul's benefit, I'm going to go through the full list of outs and ins. This includes the likes of Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, as you mentioned then. Also people like Rock Yassin, Isaac Yiadom, Aaron Banks, Talanoa Hafunga, Elijah Mitchell, who had a great spell when he first joined the team, but maybe hasn't quite done it since. Jordan Mason as well, going out. And then in terms of free agency, the likes of Marcus Robertson came through the door, Mac Jones, Siran Neal, Andre Dillard, as well as the likes of Trey Brown, Equinemius St. Brown, Greg Joseph, Thomas Morstead, amongst many others. And we did see for a few days Kyle Juszczyk leave the team, but he has since come back. You've also let the likes of John Feliciano leave, Mitch Wisnowski, as well as the likes of Deebo Samuel and Malik Collins. And in the draft, the first three, I should say, taken by the Niners were Mikael Williams, Alfred Collins, and Nick Martin. Now, Paul, you mentioned it a bit earlier about maybe it was only really Dre Greenlaw you were maybe upset about. But what was your take overall on the Niners offseason with the ins and outs?
As I said, when free agency started, obviously being based in the UK, sometimes you're playing catch up. Dre Greenlaw was the one. I've seen his press conference a couple of days ago where he said as a foster child, he wanted to be wanted and the Broncos made him feel that way. And I do feel that it was a business decision, but maybe we got that one slightly wrong. I think in the end, they tried to agree the money. The plan all along with the NFL is a salary cap. And the Niners have had one eye on this window. You mentioned some names there. Deebo Samuel, Would I be upset at getting rid of the 2021 Deebo Samuel? That put the team on his back. The wide back that took the lead by storm. Yes. Last year's Deebo Samuel, he probably needed a new change. Kyle tried to force too many touches. We saw that last year. We saw his hands weren't as great. His mind wasn't there. You touched upon Javarius Ward. I think it's well documented, Andy, the tragedy that he went through. And I think the decision was made last year, that he wasn't getting a new contract, added to the family tragedy. I think it's one of those cases where we were sad to see him go because he did well for the Niners. But by all accounts, some of the young and hungry draft picks that we've got. And I think sometimes a fresh energy is needed. I know the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs again. Brad Simcox has been very gracious in that. But it was hard this time last year to pick yourself up off the floor. And I'm talking about myself as a content creator and as the vice president of the 49er Faithful UK. God knows how them guys, well, I say did. They clearly didn't, Andy. So I think this year we've changed a lot. The biggest talking point for Niners fans wasn't the guys out the door. It was the clearing the decks of special teams. It was clearing the decks of the coaching staff. Robert Saleh has come back. And we all saw what he did last time he was a defensive coordinator. The scheme will be very similar to what we saw last year. But I think Salah's got those key pieces that you've mentioned, Mikael Williams. Day 6 of training camp, I am feeling pretty confident from what I've seen. Alfred Collins is that big body run stuffer that we needed. And if you watched the Niners last year, Andy, teams were running on us at will. Third down defense was non-existent. And, in the NFL, if teams couldn't run the ball, and if you can't get off the field on third down, it's a recipe for a 6-11 season. Just what we had last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Salah's a really, really big addition because I think it's safe to say Nick Sorensen didn't work out as the Niners DC. I believe he's now with the Cowboys, but
he is with the Cowboys. I've had some fun pointing out to some of my friends who support the Cowboys, Andy. Yes, he is there.
You think about even when Salah left, Mika Ryan came in and did an equally good job, and then he got, almost, that's the price you pay for being a good team, is you lose certain players, or certainly the most biggest one you always seem to see is coordinators. And Mika Ryan has gone on great strength since. But yeah, Nick Sorensen didn't really have the best time as the Niners head coach, as a Niners DC, I should say, sorry, in that. And I think there were injuries, granted. I think that should be pointed out. But I think the kind of drop-off we saw was, you can argue probably, can you say it's worse than the 2020 Super Bowl hangover? I don't know. But certainly it was not what any of us were expecting. I don't think. You said at the start of this is part 2. I just don't think anyone really would have had the Niners winning that less amount of games in 2024. And I think obviously a part of that was down to McCaffrey's obviously absence. Only played 4 games in 2024. Of course, coming off a career year. You could argue it's either his second or his best year of his career. You could argue maybe the year with the Panthers he had in 2019 might come close to that. But yeah, I think with McCaffrey down, you just saw a massive difference in the team's fortunes. Now, you saw him come in 2023 or 2022, and he changed the team around instantly. He made them even better. Obviously, carried it on to 2023, and we all know what happened then. Made the Super Bowl, made it in Vegas, and it was clear to see the kind of that. I think that plus Deebo's sort of decline, when both were key parts in the past, was really evident to see. Now, with McCaffrey going into 2025, are you expected to come back, the McCaffrey we saw in 2023, or the McCaffrey we saw in 2024?
It's not like he ruptured his Achilles tendon. I mean, we were all stunned this time last year. We were oblivious to the tendonitis, and we didn't really understand that he had it in both Achilles. He signed the restructured contract. Then there was kind of like misinformation from the team right up until week 1 of the season. And I think, like you said, the misconception is without McCaffrey, the Niners offense stunk. And in some regards, it did. As I said at the start of the show, I've got some stats to back it up. We still actually moved the ball quite well. We actually still got the yards. But where I think McCaffrey's absence was felt was in the red zone. Add to Debo, loss of form. And I think the Niners are looking forward to, if McCaffrey can stay healthy, it can be that third down role with a heavy involvement in both the passing and the running game. Like you said, we mentioned in 2023, he wasn't just beating teams on the ground like Barkley is for the Eagles. And if the positional skill players can contribute as well, I have no doubt, Andy, that he can get back to the 2023 Christy McCaffrey. As I said, I'm plugged into training camp. He's looking good. He looks like he got that bounce back. He looks like he's confident. He's obviously off the field. He's married. Now a dad. The girl dad energy around the Niners is at an all-time high because McCaffrey's had a little girl. Brock Purdy's had a little girl. And that's why I do believe, I've got 23 hung up over my shoulder. In 2023, McCaffrey led the NFL in scrimmage yards, total touchdowns 21. He was the offensive player of the year in the NFL. You take that off any team, they're going to struggle. And I think some fans are giddy that the Niners struggled without him. Now, I'm not doing fantasy football this year, Andy, but if I was, I'd be taking McCaffrey number one. That's how confident I am that CMC's bouncing back.
Yeah, he's fast becoming one of the most riskiest picks in fantasy because you know how good he can be, and particularly in fantasy now. My love of fantasy has dwindled a little bit, but
yeah, I'm not doing it this year. Apology to Matt Cullen in the JTT Cup. He did try to get me in, but I've decided, Andy, to have a clean sweep. So I deleted all the apps. I left your league, and I've just said to everybody, I'm having a year off with the content creating, work getting busy, and I want to enjoy football. I don't want to be sitting down on a Sunday at 5:45, having to set 22 different teams lineups and looking at the injury reports. I just want to enjoy a year of football this year. So that's why I've dipped out of it, buddy. Sorry to cut in there.
No, it's absolutely fine. And, I'm still in a few leagues. I'm in a few leagues that I've been in for years. And we do have our charity league. So, it is one where I like to keep that going. And I have still donated to these leagues I was in before because I kind of still want to be, some small part of the JTT Cup and the Scott Fish Bowl and everything like that. But no, I just felt like I was in 25 leagues last year. And then, got down to 7 now. So I've managed to cut down quite a few, which is a shame because I was in a lot of good leagues and made some good friends along the way doing it. But no, sadly, I don't think I commit. And also, this isn't really a dig at the fantasy football. It's more, I'm getting tired now of constantly having to be at a game. People going, oh, that guy got me 15 points. That guy got me. It's like, I'm not in your league, so why should I care what your player's getting me? Even, I was actually, one time I sat next to a friend and I was against him in a league, and we were watching Falcons Jets in 2021. But it is just I find I want to enjoy the game as it is.
Yeah, it plays a part in your NFL fandom. I mean, I fell in love with fantasy football when I discovered the NFL. The JTT Cup, the 49er Faithful UK are still represented. Big shout out to Gary Thorpe. And like you said, Andy, off air, I do believe we are going to try and do something. We have obviously been supporting the Scott Fish Bowl, the JDT Cup. We've been, retweeting them. We've been putting the word out there. But I'm an all or nothing kind of guy for those people who know me. And you said there you've dwindled it to 7. I just decided I wanted, like you said, the enjoyment to be back. And kind of because the Niners had a bit of a down year last year, I really wanted to focus my energy on really plugging into this team and, preparing for tonight's show. You sent me the questions you wanted to ask. People are saying, oh, he's a homer. He's going to say McCaffrey's going to bounce back. But why can't he bounce back, Andy? As I said, it's not like a ruptured Achilles tendon. George Kittle has had the tendonitis. It is a common injury in the athlete. It happens in the NBA. Let's face it, it's not like me or you going to the NHS. McCaffrey's got the best medical care over there. And from what I've seen in training camp, he's looking good. So that's all I can base it on at this time of year. What I've seen on training camp, what the beat reporters are saying, what the team themselves are saying.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the beat reporters, and it's an amazing segue into our next point about the wide receiver room. And I've just on my phone, as you're talking about McCaffrey's injury, my phone came up telling me that 49ers wide receiver Jawan Jennings re-injured the same calf that was bothering him during OTAs, and there's no timeline for his return per Kyle Shanahan. Jennings is currently seeking a new contract. So that's been on my Talking of Fantasy. That's on my sleeper app telling me this. So
yeah, so Shanahan's speaking to the media at the moment. To be honest, I'm not surprised because we do our live show on a Wednesday. There was a lot of talk about the wide receiver room. I've finished work at 5 tonight, been shooting around, getting ready for this. And I saw that we'd signed a load of receivers. Now, obviously, the chatter has already started in the UK faithful chat. But Kyle Shanahan said ahead of training camp, Andy, that he likes to have a lot of big-bodied wide receivers in and around camp. You know, you've got 90 people at the moment. You can play around with the numbers. You know, Ayuk's injured. Ricky Purcell's carrying a hamstring. Juwan Jennings, the contract / the calf. So it doesn't surprise me that we've brought a couple more in today. I'm not worried at this point with Juwan Jennings. Some Niners fans might be getting ready to throw something at the screen. I love JJ, third and Juwan. He's an excellent third option. But if he wants elite wide receiver one money for me, Andy, it's not happening. And you've seen with the way the team have approached this free agency, you can't pay everybody in the NFL. You know, Ayuk got the big extension last year. We're probably not seeing Brandon until at least week 9, week 10, if at all this year. You know, Ricky Purcell, which we're going to touch upon, he's carrying some concerns with his hamstring. So at this point, I think they're just keeping him out for precautions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that is a nice way to go into it. I mean, Ricky Pearsall had, we mentioned it in part one, had an unfortunate start to his NFL career, of course, shot in the chest, which he miraculously recovered from. So it took him a while to start a game for obvious reasons. But now he's got his chance with Deebo Samuel out the door and with the aforementioned injuries to the likes of Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings. It opens the door for him to have a run. Now, ESPN hasn't told me he's got an injury doubt, so I didn't realize he was also having problems. But say if it is a case where Ayuk isn't playing for until week 9, week 10, or at all, Juwan Jennings, we just talked about it then, has injury problems. Ricky Pearsall has got the chance here. I mean, George Kittle will get the lion's share. Probably could be the number one target for Purdy this season, or maybe even McCaffrey in the receiving plays for running backs. Trying to think what the play type is called now. Wheel route, like the wheel route kind of plays. But I think Pearsall's next in line, and I think he has a real chance here. He's been given an opportunity through injury to stake his claim as, a WR1, WR2 in the Niners. How are you feeling about him? Because if I'm looking at the stats he had, I mean, only 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, albeit in, only a handful of games. And he had a 141-yard game with 1 touchdown in the second to last game of the season. So he's ended the season really well, 69 yards in the last game. So he's going into the season, a bit of momentum from last year, the momentum which he's carried from those 2 games. This is his chance to really stake a claim. How are you feeling about him going into his second year as a Niners player?
So when you said it wasn't flashing up, this is what's great when you plug in to your team and the local beat writers. So he didn't participate very well in OTAs. And then when they reported ahead of training camp, Shanahan alluded to him having a hamstring. So they're managing Purcell at the moment. So I think the way they're doing the team activities, they did a couple of days without pads, then a break. Then they did a couple of days with pads, then break. So they're managing Purcell at the moment. So everybody's focused in. Now, some of the great 49ers content creators that I follow are lucky enough to be at training camp. So some of this stuff that I've been able to say, I haven't seen with my own eyes, Andy, but I'm talking like Brad Graham, who runs the SF Niners, who I was fortunate enough to have on our show. He's at training camp every day. And as soon as training camp finishes, he's coming out, getting on his phone, and he's telling you what he saw. Now, Samuel going didn't surprise me because this was always a plan when we drafted Purcell last year. Not a big college football fan. I was surprised when we took a wide receiver at 31. And I think the more I did the deep dive after, because that's what I do, Andy, once we select these players, I then go and fall in love with them. That's the advantage of not doing college football. He was praised as a polished route runner. Not something you could say about Deebo Samuel. Don't know if you've ever watched any game tape of Deebo. He's a wrecking ball, but he's not quite what you would call an elite wide receiver. And I think under Purdy, Purdy's biggest strength is his anticipation. So for Purdy, you mentioned a wheel route. If your receiver's running the wheel route and he's breaking on 10 steps, Purdy's releasing that ball when he thinks he's on step 8 or 9. If that receiver's not running it perfectly, and the game you referenced was against the Lions last year, and there's a great slow-mo of Purcell doing an in route. So he looks like he's breaking up the field, puts the brakes on, boom. Before he's even turned his head, Purdy's released that ball, snagged it in, dragged the toes, and you think that is what we're expecting for Ricky Purcell. So I think under Shanahan, you might be seeing the fact that Purdy's got a weapon that is an actual wide receiver. I agree with your take. George Kittle will probably be option 1, and that's got everything to do with Farrell coming in to block at tight end, releasing Kittle. I think CMC is going to be your all-purpose weapon, and I think Purcell's going to be that receiver with, the separation skills, the route running, the top-end speed to take it off. And I think they're going to be the three-headed monster that's going to take the NFL by storm. Now, I'm not saying it's a home run. You mentioned he got shot in the chest, which stunned everybody last year. He enters 2025 for me as a calculated bet. The strengths, as I've mentioned, elite route running, body control. He's got the mental acumen to get to grips with Kyle Shanahan's system. And like you said, given the clearer target share and the trust from the coaching staff and the QB, I think you could see why we took this lad. And I'm quietly confident. I think if you're going to take a punt on him in fantasy football, you won't be disappointed. And I know I'm not playing fantasy football, and people listening saying, Paul, stop telling us who to take. Because that was another reason I stepped away, Andy, because I always just took Niners players. But would you agree with my take on Purcell, or you think I'm just being a bit too optimistic?
No, I mean, I trust you and your opinion a lot because, whilst, I watch NFL every week, you watch the 49ers in full every week. So you know exactly what he goes through and what these players do. I think personally, as I said before, and you sort of carried on the point and elaborated on it, is the fact that, he is going to be, the fact that he's there, he's planned for, with Deebo Samuel out the door in a year's time, and he's got a year under his belt. I just feel like, there's a lot of players that Tom Brady sort of got benefited by an injury, but Drew Bledsoe came in, never looked back. Pearsall can do this now. Like, if he is, the kind of quarterback wide receiver we saw in Florida with the Gators, I know he translated that to the NFL level, and I think he's got all the talent in the world to be someone. He just needs to make the most of this chance, because if he can't stake a claim now when he's got, the top two receivers on the depth chart injured and a tight end who, is getting older, then when is he going to break through? This is his chance. I know he's only in his second year, but, Treylon Burks, classic example, year 3, done, injured again, out the door. And, a lot of players will have these 3 years. They don't do well in those 3 years. You don't get a new contract. You haven't done enough on game tape for other teams to come and get you. And then you're either retiring or playing in the CFL. So, yeah, I feel like this is his chance. And I feel like, I think Shanahan criticizes postseason record all you want, but in the regular season and working with players, he's absolutely brilliant at it. And, he's helped many players improve, and he even got, if you can get Jimmy Garoppolo to Super Bowl, you're a pretty good head coach. So for me, he can make Pearsall into a good player, and I think we'll go into it later on, but an easy schedule will help as well, as a result of being one of the lowest ranked teams in the NFC West last season. So I think Pearsall's got a great chance, and I think certainly he should want to look out for this season in both real NFL and fantasy NFL.
You talked about, before we move on, Shanahan and his offense. So a lot of the NFC West teams, the fans I've listened to, who you've talked to, think Shanahan's done, this offense is cooked. But even as the most injured team last year, Andy, the 49ers were top 10 in DV away, which I know is a sexy stat that everyone likes. Top 12 in success rate and expected points per attempt. Second in yards per play. Third in percentage of plays over 10 yards. And when you go back and watch the 49ers from last year, Brock Purdy had a lot to do with, he had to air the ball out. He had to go deep. We had to move away from that offense that Kyle Shanahan likes to run, the power running back, the outside zone. And I think a lot of Niners fans are excited because it looks like we're going back to basics. We've cleared the deck with the coaching staff on the defensive side. Salah is a de facto head coach running the defense. Kyle's brought in a special teams coordinator and said, you do that. We've cleaned the deck. And I think Kyle and Kubiak are in the kitchen putting together an offense. But to say Kyle Shanahan is done as an offensive coordinator, as you said, he's got Brock Purdy, he's got George Kittle, he's got CMC, Ricky Purcell. There's always a player, isn't there, Andy, in the NFL that, maybe he doesn't hit it quite in year one. And then year two, you think, where was this kid? He's had a year to adapt to the playbook. As the talking heads are saying on ESPN, the Niners have got a winning culture. Yes, last year was a bad year, but it doesn't mean we're a bad football team. And I do think Ricky is that kind of young, hungry wide receiver. But as you said, this is his chance now. And if now is not the time, then unfortunately you go back to the draft room. But there's a couple of the rookies this year have done flashes in training camp. But at the moment, the expectation is on those three, as I've said, to kind of get us back to where we want to be.
Well, Paul, let's head on to win, lose, or tie. So for those of you that are new to this podcast, each fan who comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie answer. So Paul, the Niners went 6-11 in 2024. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was 12 months ago?
It wasn't 6-11. It was either 14-3 or 13-4. It was something where I had every confidence that we were running away with it. So it definitely wasn't 6-11, but I'm sure you've got it written down there.
Yeah, well, just like Ollie and Phil also in part one back in 2024, you also went for 13-4. So yeah, it's one of our those biggest gaps between wins and actual wins. But
I think it was a combination of the injuries and everything else. But yeah, most Niners fans were still riding high. We'd just fallen short in the Super Bowl. The hype was there that we were going to go back and do it again. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Ollie got similar to me because this time last year we were feeling confident. So hopefully it'll be just a blip.
Well, Ollie has given his part one prediction, so I'm interested to see whether you get the same prediction as Ollie. So week one, starting off in week one, it's a absolute cracker to start the season for a Niners fan, and for you particularly, you are taking on the road the Seattle Seahawks. Paul, win, lose, or tie?
Well, spoiler alert, I've got no ties in mine. So this one I've got a win. I do believe we've travelled well under Kyle Shanahan and with Brock Purdy. So I know Seattle are feeling bullish, but it's that kind of plant your flag in the ground kind of, NFC West clash week one. What a start. But I've got us winning that one, Andy.
Well, week two, you're travelling to New Orleans and you're taking on the Saints.
Yeah, I think the Saints. I've not got a chance in this one. Plus, some of the UK faithful will be there. So I've got another win for this one. No surprise.
Wow. Is the one and only Gary Thorpe going to be in New Orleans?
I'm not sure if Gary's going. I did the live show with Gary last night, but there's the UK faithful have got very excited with the early kickoffs this year, and there's a big cohort heading out to New Orleans. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but there's definitely a big group who's targeted that game. So we'll be well represented, and you'll see the flag flying, I'm sure.
Can't wait for that. Well, week three is a home game, your first of the season, and you're taking on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, another in-division game, but as you've said, their first home game of the season. So I've got this one down as a win as well for the Niners. So 3-0 at the moment for those people listening.
Well, so far the same as Ollie. He also started 3-0. Week four, you're at home once again, but this time you're taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, again, I've gone for a win. So I promise everybody listening, I haven't just gone down the page and got the Niners winning every game. I was listening to you and Sam when I was doing this earlier, and Sam, I was listening for what he was predicting the Rams games, but yeah, I've got those going 4-0 heading into that Rams game.
And that is your week 5 game on the road at SoFi Stadium. Win, lose, or tie?
So we'll be heading to Levi South, so it'll be turned red. But I do feel the Rams will take this one. I think they've got a good team. I think they're going to start the season well. So I think we're going to split the series with the Rams. I think we lose this one. I think later on in the season we win, which we'll get to. But I've got this as the first loss of the season. And the sky isn't falling in when that happens. The Rams are a good team. So I do feel we will lose this one on the road.
Well, I'm trying to give at least one game per episode a nickname, the something goal. Something I've done the last few episodes now. So I'm going to call this, in week 6, the Paul Hope trip to San Fran in 2023 Bowl as you take on Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but on the road.
So Tampa Bay holds some special memories for me for that reason. Obviously, I went over to Levi's in 2023. Last year, we had a watch party down at Leeds. Jasmine, my 15-year-old stepdaughter, was able to come to her first UK watch party. We scraped a win, believe it or not, with the Jake Moody winning field goal. Not a sentence many Niners fans would hold. So I do like Baker Mayfield. I think Tampa Bay are doing well, but that's an early kickoff. And I'm hoping week 6 is going to be special for a number of reasons for the 49ers fans in the UK. So I've got that one down as a win.
Now, you may have mentioned before, your daughter, has she got no choice in the matter? Is she a 49ers fan no matter what? Or have you let her solve? Has she got a team? Is she getting into it?
So I've got the 2 girls. So I'll be brutally honest. Jasmine, who's 15, was really into it from when I met Tracy. And she's got a Kittle jersey. But I have loosely said she doesn't have to pick a team. And Kaylee, who's now 18, fell in love with the sport when we got beat by the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think it helped that she saw us on TV. They're both Swifties, Andy. So as long as they don't support the Kansas City Chiefs and come with Travis Kelce jerseys. So out of the 2 girls in the house, Jasmine's the one that is kind of shown an interest. And it was nice to share the watch party last year. It was only one of the local ones that we did in Leeds. It was 6 o'clock kickoff, so we could travel down. So again, with this being a 6 o'clock kickoff, I'm hoping that we've got something in store, meet up and watch this one. So I've got this one as a win. Bounce back after a tough loss to the Rams.
Well, shout out to Jasmine if you are listening to this episode. Week 7, though, is a home game, your first since week 4, as you take on the Atlanta Falcons.
See, I have got this one as a win, but I don't think it's going to be an easy win because we always struggle against the Falcons. So I could see this one going either way, but for the context of this activity, I've got this one as a win.
Okay, so week 8 is your first of 2 straight road games, and in week 8, you are taking on the road, the Houston Texans.
This one should be a great game. Shanahan going up against D'Amico. I've got this one as a win as well. But similar to the Falcons, I could see us losing this one. But given that it's the 31st of July and I'm feeling very confident, I've got this one as a win, given that what I've said earlier on in the show.
Well, week 9, you're going to MetLife and taking on the Giants.
I hope the field doesn't have anything to do with this. I don't like MetLife. It holds horrible memories from when we played the Jets. But I think by this point of the season, the Giants will have checked out. So, Sean, I know you're a Giants fan living in Darlington. You're probably going to hate me for this, but I think we're going to beat the Giants on this one. So, there you go.
Well, week 10, you are once again taking on the Rams, but this time, you're at home.
Yeah, I said earlier, I think we split the series with the Rams, so I think we win this one as well.
Well, then heading on to week 11, you're taking on the road, the Arizona Cardinals.
Similar to what Sam, the Rams fan, said to you, the Cardinals, I think, are not great this year. And I think by week 11, they'll have checked out. So again, I've got this one as a win for the Niners.
Okay, so then week 12, you are hosting the Carolina Panthers.
The CMC return game, I think he's going to go off it on that one. I think he's going to be throwing touchdowns, catching touchdowns. So again, we beat the Panthers in this one.
So week 13, just before your week 14 bye week, is a road game against the Cleveland Browns.
I might surprise a few people here. We always tend to struggle in Cleveland, and given it's later on in the season, the weather might play a part. So I've got this one down as a loss heading into the bye week. I just think the highs of what we've done, and I just think we lose this one going into the bye week.
So week 15, in an amazing year, only your 3rd home game since week 4, you're taking on the Tennessee Titans.
I know that's crazy, that, isn't it? So I just feel this schedule has been put together for me. So Ryan, who lives in Dalton as well, he's a Titans fan. So we had this one circled for a meet-up, but I think it's a 1 a.m. game. So I think the Niners beat the Titans.
Okay, so then moving on to week 16, you're taking on the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think we win this one as well. I think the Colts are terrible. So sorry, Colts fans. That's just how I feel at the moment.
No, that's totally just. But that was your final road game of the regular season. So you've got 2 home games to finish the year. And your first one is on December 28th against the Chicago Bears.
So I have a new line manager starting work next week, Andy, and he's a Bears fan.
Ooh.
So as soon as I saw this one, I thought, he's going to be the guy that I have to ask for annual leave, late start. So this one is going to be very interesting because I've got a full circle moment. Because the reason I got into the NFL was a previous job I joined, and there was a Bears fan, and the Niners were playing the Bears Monday Night Football. It's when Kaepernick started. It's what I've said to you before many times, when I fell in love with the NFL. So now to go full circle, that someone's coming back. But sorry, Andy, I know you'll be listening. The Bears are losing this one. I just think the Niners have got too much for you. So another win for the Niners.
Well, finally, in week 18, you are on at home to the Seattle Seahawks.
Brand new rivalry jerseys. The NFL haven't thought that through, have they? They're letting us represent a new jersey week 18. By this point, the number 1 seed's wrapped up. We're already in the playoffs. We've rested all the starters. So Seattle win this one. And I already know what my total is because I've got it written down.
The 14-3 to go along with Oddie's 13-4. So 2 very confident fans. Now, Paul, should you get to the playoffs with that record, which you easily will, how far will you go in the postseason?
I don't think anybody wants to face the 49ers in the postseason. Under Kyle Shanahan, we get into the playoffs, we make the NFC Championship game at least. So that is the minimum. I know Sam, the Rams fan, I'm referencing it because I watched it earlier. He made me chuckle when you asked him this question, and he was a bit cautious, and then he was like, "We're winning it all," and I just laughed because that's what I love about the NFL. At this stage of the season, if you're predicting all these wins and you get your team in there, the NFL, you need a bit of luck. You need things to go your way. But I think if the Niners get in the playoffs, Andy, I think the minimum is the NFC Championship game. And I do think that we've got a lot to prove. So I'm confident at this stage of the season. Purdy is my man. So I do feel if we get in there, we're going all the way. And you wouldn't expect me to say anything less, would you, buddy?
No, I thought you saying earlier you're being realistic. You might say maybe a wild card loss, maybe just missing out on the playoffs, or I didn't think you say the whole way. I'm not going to lie.
Well, again, it's just optimism. I mean, you ask me this question in 6 months' time, and if you think, oh, the Niners get to the Super Bowl and they're playing the Chiefs again, am I going to be that confident? Probably not. As a Niners fan, I've only known heartbreak in the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. But when I said realistic, the schedule has been very kind to Niners fans. When I was putting together this, going through there, we don't have an Eagles in the regular season. We don't have the Packers to play. We don't have the Lions to play. And that's one advantage, I suppose, of having a bad season last year. You talked to the Rams fan earlier about under McVay, they're unlikely to get a number 1 pick in the draft. It's like with us, the year we got Nick Bosa at number 2 was a freak because we'd been terrible and we got that number 2 pick. This year, the schedules reflected that we were a 6-11 team. But I think the Niners are that team that Vegas, I think, have got us winning at least 10 to 12 games. They're not often wrong. And I do just think, like you said, getting into the playoffs, it'll be interesting because the loss I've given was against the Browns in the AFC. Like I said, we've not got the Ravens. We've not got any of the big hitters in the regular season. So could that go against the Niners, Andy? What do you reckon? We have this easy run. We get into the playoffs. Could we then fall short because we've not played anyone big? I don't know.
I don't want to give away my predictions too much before our predictions episode, but I have said in a chat with Ollie Kent in our Star Bench trade episode, I don't know whether it was Star Bench trade for quarterbacks or offensive skill positions. We talked about this, but I said that, if everyone's healthy, then the Niners could have a good season, especially with that schedule as well. So I'm expecting you guys to make the playoffs. Whether that's going to be as division winners or as a 5th or 6th or 7th seed is a different story. But I think, there are certainly holes in the roster after the departures of certain players. But I think with kind of coaching staff you've got, and you've got that trio you mentioned of McCaffrey, Purdy, and Kittle, if everyone's fit.
I think
Trent Williams
people forget. I think what people are forgetting, Andy, the Rams fan you had on earlier was very dismissive of the Niners. We don't need this defense to be elite top 3. We just need this defense to be top 10. If you put a top 10 defense with Kyle Shanahan's offense, some people will laugh. Luke Farrell is the key. You're going to see a lot more 2 tight end sets. You're going to see Kittle released a bit more. Trent Williams, as you were going to say there, yes, he's 37, but he's still one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Dominic Puny was a steal that we found last year. And I just think, you'll remember, Brock Purdy's coming at this fully healthy, married, baby, contract, everything's, and we've got that kind of hunger because we're the hunter now. We're not being hunted. And I did like that teams are underestimating us. I mean, it could be boom or bust. We could come back this time next year, Andy, and you could say, Paul, welcome back. Remember, you said you were going to win the Super Bowl. But, who knows, buddy? Who knows?
Well, let's head into our final segment, which is Fan Asks Fan. Well, for those that aren't familiar with our brand new segment in this year's off-season season previews, each fan that comes on asks the next guest a question, whilst also answering a question from the previous guest. So, Paul, our last team was the Jacksonville Jaguars, and our guest was Lee White, otherwise known as BritJag on Twitter. He wants to ask you, which team, you may have already answered to this, which team do you think will surprise everyone and do well this year?
See, I feel like I'm cheating because I've listened to your show and I know we have a mutual friend in Mike Garmston, but I think the Denver Broncos are going to surprise a lot of people. Obviously, they've took Hufanga and Greenlaw from us. I think Sean Payton is getting the scheme in place there. So if there was going to be a surprise team, I'm going to say the Denver Broncos. That would be my answer to that question.
You can find out my answer to that question in our season predictions episode just before the season begins with myself, Luke Campbell, and Steve McGuinness. Now, Paul, it's your duty now to ask our next guest a question. So, Paul, what is that question for our next team season preview guest?
So we are very fortunate at the 49er Faithful UK to have a special relationship with a team we love. So as you know, Andy, the 49ers throw us an annual watch party every year. It tends to be in London, and they tend to fly in a special guest. So we've been fortunate enough to have Joe Staley. We've been fortunate enough to have Frank Gore. So my question to the next guest is, if your team contacts you and says, right, we're going to throw an official watch party and we're going to fly in an ex-player. Now, what I want to remind them is you can't be unrealistic with like Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, as much as we've all got our favourites. But the question is, your team puts on an official watch party. Who would be your ex-player of choice and why? You've got to give a reason why. So for us, Joe Staley was awesome because he partied all night long with us. Frank Gore, for those people who saw my footage last year, I danced to Journey, Don't Stop Believing in front of 500 faithful. So when I was preparing for today, I do like this segment, by the way. I wasn't sure which question I was going to get because I've been watching the shows back. So I did have a few answers prepared. And that question you asked me wasn't one that I prepared for. So that was off the cuff. But my question is, you're having a watch party by the team you love. Who's the ex-player that you want to be there and why?
Interesting. Well, in terms of recording, I've actually got a 3-day break now because I have got weekend plans. So next recording on the Tuesday next week. So I know who the guest is. I know who the team is, provided they turn up and don't have any issues with commitments. That should be an interesting answer. But there we are. That is the end of this episode. So, Paul, I want to say, first of all, thank you once again for coming on.
No, thank you, buddy. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I support everything you're doing on social media. And when you reach out, it is always a privilege to talk all things football. We will try and meet in person. It is something that we both talked about. I'm not at the London games this year, but I may be in and around London for something special with the 49ers. Who knows? But I'm sure as two non-drinkers, it'll be good to kind of touch base, share a non-alcoholic drink, talk football, get some photos. But as I said, Andy, keep doing what you're doing, buddy. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And it's been great to be a guest on your show once again.
Well, thank you very much. Well, if you do me out for a non-alcoholic drink, I'll have a mojito, please.
I like that.
Well, there we are. That is the end of our Across the Pod NFL podcast, San Francisco 49ers two-parter 2025 season preview. I have been, as ever, your guest, Andy Davis. Huge thanks to Ollie Hope for part 1 and thanks to Paul Hope for part 2. And we'll see you guys for our next team season preview. See you then.